Okay.
Hey, Moniece.
Hey guys,
How are you?
I'm good. You doing okay?
We're doing fine. Doing fine.
Good.
How's Memphis?
Beautiful fall day.
Good.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Keith, if we're not bothering you, we probably need to get started on this meeting if at all possible. I want to, first of all,
Are you in the
before,
office, Monique?
I am.
before we get started, I want to tell you that I was just able to attend an event here at UT Martin on campus, which was the groundbreaking for the new Latimer Engineering Building, a $65 million building, a STEM building that I think is not only going to change the landscape of what UT Martin looks like, but it will also change the landscape of what our students look like. And it was a very, very, very good meeting. The governor was here, the lieutenant governor was here, Randy Boyd was here, several legislators were here. Just a day which will go down in history in UT Martin. And I was glad that I was able there, and I heard several people express that they were glad that Keith was quarantined. And I'm kidding there, as you well know. First of all, we're going to have the call of order and roll call. Edie?
Katie Ashley, Hal Bynum,
Here.
and can you specify whether you're alone or with someone?
I am alone.
Thank you. Moniece Hagler,
Here and alone.
thank you. Emma Hilliard,
Here and alone.
thank you. Philip Smart,
Here and alone.
Art Sparks.
I'm here, but I'm not alone.
True. Julia Wells,
I'm here and alone.
thank you so much. You have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you. Executive Order number 60, which extends the practices of Executive Order number 16, temporarily suspends the requirement of the Tennessee Open Meeting Act to the extent necessary to allow any governing body subject to the requirements of the Tennessee Open Meeting Act to meet and conduct essential business by electronic means if the body determines meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, effective until September 30th, 2020. I would like to state for the record that Chancellor Carver and I have discussed the benefits of Executive Order number 60 and agreed that all members of the advisory board participating by electronic means is necessary to protect public safety, health, and welfare in the light of the coronavirus. Notices of this meeting provided instructions for the public to access the meeting electronically and included a copy of the meeting agenda. The public is able to view these proceedings at utm.edu/AB meeting. Meeting materials have been provided in advance to the board and posted to the advisory board website. All votes will be taken by roll call vote. All members participating by electronic means are deemed to be present at the meeting for purposes of voting. A few helpful tips regarding virtual meeting protocol, which may be useful, share in facilitating our meeting. Please state your name when addressing the group. This is so-and-so. Also, we will allow questions during the presentation, but we need to minimize interrupting speakers when possible due to technology challenges. I would like to welcome UTM's faculty and student members to their first official meeting as members. Dr. Philip Smart, who is a professor of natural resource management, will be here for the 2020 through 2022. Dr. Smart, we're very happy to have you there.
Thank you.
Also, Ms. Emma Hilliard, who is a junior majoring in HHP from Bells, Tennessee. She is here for her one-year term. Emma, welcome.
Thank you.
Katie Ashley, who is presently not with us, continues to serve at this time because her replacement, Mr. John Woolfork of Jackson, his membership is actually pending confirmation by the House and the Senate. John is a 1971 UTM alumnus with a degree in agriculture. Woolfolk Farms is a three-generation family operation located in Madison County. Recognized in 1976 as one of the Tennessee's original Century Farm designees for over 100 years of continuous ownership and agricultural production by the same family. He received a 150 recognition from the Tennessee Commissioner of Ag during pre-sale activities in 2015. Farm production includes registered Hereford stock, row crops, rotation from cotton, corn, soybeans, and wheat, with some hybrid Bermuda and alfalfa in annual production. John, we certainly and sincerely welcome you to the advisory board and would give you an opportunity to say anything if you would like.
Thank you very much. Seems like you know more about me than I did myself almost. Introduction there. I have been a part of UT Martin since 1967 when I enrolled there as a freshman, and have continued through the years to be involved in, particularly in the College of Agriculture with the Governor's School of Agriculture. We have worked with that program since its inception and have had groups of students on the farm every year for afternoon of educational activities and fun. Been involved with the FFA program there on campus as well, and then the scholarships. I've written several checks through an organization that I've treasured for 25 years through Young Farmers to sponsor Young Farm scholarship for rising sophomores in agriculture. So I was thrilled when I got a call from the governor's office with the opportunity to be a part of this board, and look forward to working with you folks in the future.
While we're sorry to see Katie go, we're certainly happy to see you come on board, John, and look forward to your participation in this board. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. You have been sent that information in the past. We have the opportunity to read it if you would like, but I would also accept a motion to accept the approval of the minutes as presented.
Julia Wells, I move the approval of the minutes as submitted.
Is there a second?
I second it. Hal?
Thank you, Hal. We will now have a roll call vote on the accepting of the minutes.
Katie Ashley, Hal Bynum,
Aye.
Moniz Hagler,
Aye.
thank you, Emma Hilliard,
Aye.
Philip Smart,
Aye.
Art Sparks,
Aye.
Julia Wells.
Aye.
We have approval.
Thank you. The minutes are approved. We'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is the student athlete overview. Kurt McGuffin, who is the athletic director, will make that presentation. Kurt, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chairman Sparks. I want to thank you for allowing me the time to present on athletics. I wish I was presenting about a lot of competitions coming up in the near future, but I'll talk about what's going on in the last 6 months to a year. And I wanted to briefly just review my agenda for you, and we'll talk a little bit about COVID and what our response was to that this summer, as well as going into this fall. I'll talk a little bit about the competition postponement that Dr. Carver and I and the OVC, we had to make a decision back in the summer. And then I wanted to highlight an area which I would do very often if given the chance in our department. In this area I want to highlight this time is our academics and compliance updates and what we've done there for our student athletes. A much needed upgrade there in many areas, and I'll talk about that. And since this is the first time I've talked to this board, I wanted to review kind of just our organizational structure and who does what in our department. And then a brief overview of our budget. Last year ending our budget just because of the cancellation of the sports, and then going into this year. Obviously we're in a fiscal year, but it's going to be a tight one in which we'll discuss that, and then I'll open up to questions. First, our reintegration policies that we implemented basically in the summer. Athletics was the first group of students with our football team to be allowed back on campus back in June. And then we added basketball in late July. we tried to follow as much as we could all the rules of the CDC and our state, and as well as what the OVC and the NCAA regulated us to do in order to have athletics back on campus. I think all of you have seen the things that are happening with events, doing temperature and wellness checks daily upon entry into any of our facilities, keeping the capacity of the facilities, which is in football's case this summer was the weight room. We didn't allow locker room access. So the strength room, we kept that down to groups of 10, which our strength coach, it was a full day for him, many days, getting 10 guys at a time through a weight session, but he did it. And kudos to our strength coach in that aspect. And then just trying to keep, as much as we could, our kids in small groups. I think we've all figured that the stuff they did outside of our control is still ongoing, but we'll talk about that probably more a little later. Some of the things that we posted in our department just for educational purposes, because there was a lot of terms, just like there is every day, because sometimes it changes daily, about different things dealing with the COVID pandemic. Quarantine, isolation, educating our kids on if they did test positive, because we did have some positive tests when we did test, because the NCAA, their re-socialization plan made us test when we started some of the practices. And then we posted a lot of these flyers educating our kids, our coaches, and even us, because, I still probably don't know everything when we contact trace and all that, but we tried to do our participate in fall sports. And there was many reasons. This went through the OVC. It was voted on by the chancellors, but Dr. Carver and I struggled with it on a daily basis. And I think it came down to 3 big reasons. One was safety. Safety of our kids, our coaches, our staff in participating in sports. Second was fairness. I know there's 3 teams in our league that are participating in football this fall. And we had that choice as well, and we struggled with it, saying that, we could play 2 or 3 football games, but fairness to all of our other sports was probably, we just didn't think it was right. And that volleyball, soccer, cross country, all of our other sports in the fall, to allow football to play 2 or 3 games probably wasn't the right decision, even though some people are doing that. And then the last piece of it is financial, both good and bad. I mean, the bad was leaving some money on the table when we have to play guarantee games, and like the Alabama and Memphis games that that were rescheduled for different years. The other piece of it was the not, I guess it wasn't good, but it's the testing cost. The NCAA in their plan was going to, and still is, on a weekly basis, we were going to have to test our football, volleyball, and soccer programs. We did that. It's about $14,000 a week to test our kids. And financially, that probably wasn't in our best interest right then. And then the staffing with testing. It took us a half a day. And to do that every week, it was going to be hard on a lot of staff members. And I thank the student health group on campus for leading us through those testings that we do. And we're continuing to do testing, don't get me wrong, but not on the grand scale until we start back up on a 20-hour week. Those are some things. The future, we are planning on playing all of our fall sports in the spring. We expect schedules in the next couple of weeks. The first sport that we'll start playing this fall and maybe basically winter will be rifle in October. And then basketball will follow up. The NCAA pushed the basketball start date to November 25th, which is when you can have your first contest. Their reasoning was that most students and most schools are out of session after Thanksgiving. And that's the case here, even though there is a finals week after Thanksgiving break. But that'll be the first dive back into competition for UT Martin. The spring it'll be fun if we get to play everything, but it'll also be difficult because we're going to try to play a football, a volleyball, soccer, both basketballs, cross country, track, baseball, softball in 6 months. And our staff will be pushed to the limits, but I have faith in them, and I think we'll get a lot of help in pulling that off for for the good of our kids. It's been hard on our kids. You know, I think some kids take things harder than others. The mental health aspect, I think, is starting to be an issue for us, and we're trying to think of ways that we can keep a hold of our kids. Every sport is in a practice session at this point, but there's still some things that we've got to do to help assist our kids and coaches. So that's the first part. I want to move into my highlight area, which is our academic area. You know, I think at a smaller school with limited budgets, you know, academics was our main focus and always has been. We want our kids to graduate. There is no doubt about that. When I got here, we had about 340 student athletes. Today, we have 490 student athletes. When I got here, we had an academic center that was probably about the size of my office, 10 by 10 room, would have 3 computers in it. As we grew, as our athletic department grew, we decided we need to make some difference and allocate some space. Well, I think the biggest part about this is the money situation. And we located some grants in the NCAA offered for schools like ours. I give credit to Ashley Bynum for writing that grant. And I give also credit for Laura Suter, who was our development person, to help raise some money to match that grant. We were awarded a $100,000 grant from the NCAA last year. And then Laura Suter raised some money, $20,000 to match it in order to receive that grant. And we renovated some dead space in our office. Well, one of the offices that we took away was my office. So I guess it was dead space, you know, but we expanded that area. And you can see in this first slide, a newer conference room, which also our kids use as a study room, and then a reception area. But probably the jewel of this grant was redoing an academic space where we could have 22 computers, and then the middle area we can check out an additional laptops. We have the big screen that kids can do presentations with, and then the back area here, if you can see my cursor, one of the bigger emphasis for us was the academic space, but it was also nutrition. And we supply milk and water and snacks for our kids to come into this space when they do either study halls or studying. I think another piece of this that we probably don't talk about a lot, it's really brought our different teams together. You know, we're athletics is kind of spread out. You got softball, baseball, you got different areas and different buildings. But on a given day, you'll see about every team be represented in here doing the things that they have to do. And I think that's real important. The other thing they do in this space, all of our academic advisors for athletics are located in these offices over here, and they come in and meet with them on a weekly basis. What has it done? Well, I think we've set some records in the last year. We had 285 kids in the spring join the athletic director's honor roll, which is for 3.0s or above. An increase of, as you can see there, almost 60 kids from the previous fall before we had the academic center.
I'm in a meeting. Can you call me?
The other thing, the commissioner's honor roll. The commissioner's honor roll is for 3.25 and above student athletes, and they must be eligible for competition and on a roster. And we set a record this year. 191 kids received a 3.25 this year or above. And then the Medal of Honor is for our 4.0 students. We set a second most in school history last year. And I think what is so good about this slide is that there's so many teams represented. It's not just manipulated or controlled by one team. We've got a lot of kids from different teams representing this slide. And of course, our goal is to set a school record with the Medal of Honor winners this year. The other good thing, out of 491 student athletes, our kids, when we sent them home in March with a little adversity because of switching to online learning, they achieved a 3.26 GPA this year on average for our whole department. And I give credit to our advisors, to our coaches, and obviously the most credit to our kids for taking care of business. Where do we go from here? Another thing that helped us, and I'm very proud of, because again, at a small school, you gotta learn to be creative. And the collaboration that happened with this program, with the honors program students, is helped us a lot as well. Dr. John Glass, who runs our honors program on campus, came to me and said, hey, my kids need community service hours that are part of the honors program. We want to help you with tutoring. Well, Ashley and her group came up with a program with Dr. Glass to help our kids, our student athletes that needed tutoring. Because a lot of times when you have almost 500 student athletes, some of the things on campus, student affairs with counseling and tutoring, they get overwhelmed by just the general students. And sending all of our kids over there can sometimes be overwhelming. And this program at least help us expand what is offered on campus. And I think it just really, really worked. And I thank Dr. Glass, and he's agreed to do it again next year, as we're going to have more kids involved with that program and the tutoring that we received. Another thing about being creative, we added so many student athletes. Well, we needed a couple more staff members. And Dr. Carver, I knew about the McClendon Foundation, being an old basketball guy. John McClendon was a minority basketball coach back in the 40s and 50s, and he has a minority leadership initiative through the foundation of his. And that's through NABC, which is the National Association of Basketball Coaches in NACDA. What this is it's a foundation. People give money to this foundation to create opportunities for minorities in either coaching or administration and athletics. Coach Barnes at Tennessee, basketball coach at Tennessee, alerted us that he is a big proponent of this and has given a donation to this. We applied for one of these positions and we got awarded one of these positions for UT Martin. We hired a gentleman by the name of Tony Bufford, who was a UTM grad, who had been teaching. He's an education major, and he was a history, and he'd been teaching in the Trenton School District here in Tennessee. And Tony started last week. And Tony's responsibility will be academic advising for football. Emily Ann Sparks has been doing that the last two and a half years, and Emily Ann will still be advising some of our at-risk kids, but she's also going to move over into a compliance role with her background in admissions and eligibility and other things. We think that would help us. That'll alleviate Ashley Bynum from being stretched a little bit there. So we're really happy, again, to be creative and get some of these grants awarded to us, because it's really going to help us in the long run. I talked about our academic staff, and I just wanted to give you a brief of who they are. Danelle Fabianich has been with us a while, and Danelle has advised many kids, and she's agreed to help me more on the business side. We lost a gentleman as our business manager last March, and we've decided to not fill that position for a year, and Danelle's agreed to take that over. She'll still continue to do some academic advising for rodeo and some other things, but Danelle's been a part of that group. Ashley Bynum has taken over compliance and academics last year. Colonel Kaler is still with us, compliance and doing APR, which is a progress towards degree type situation, and other things. And I mentioned Emily Ann and her role. Jody Duncan was an all-conference softball player for us, then became a graduate assistant for us, and now has moved into an academic advisor role. And then I mentioned Tony Bufford as well. I think the other piece that I would be remiss if I didn't mention about academics, obviously getting our kids graduated and getting them positions in the community and beyond is number one goal. But the other piece of this, there's a financial component of this that the NCAA is throwing out there. And basically with the new men's basketball media contract, the billions upon billions of dollars that is the men's basketball NCAA tournament, there's new money available, and they're going to give some of that money back to universities that meet certain academic standards. You have 3 different areas that you can meet, and you have to make one of these areas. One of them is APR, which I mentioned that your teams have to average at least a 90. One of them is a graduation success rate, where you have to average a 90, or the other one is a formula with the federal rate and your graduation rate. If we hit one of these areas, it means more money to our department. And how much? Well, in 3 or 4 years, if we hit one of those goals, it could almost mean $500,000 of unrestricted money to UT Martin Athletics, which is a game changer and one that we need to meet to help our programs, and that's unrestricted money from the NCAA. Again, first time I've met with this group, I just wanted to give you kind of our admin structure. When I got here, it was kind of a flat line. Everybody kind of pitched in and did everything, which we still do, but we're growing. And obviously the coaches are not on here on all their teams, but we're growing, and I think that's a good thing as our athletes and programs grow. Our staff has grown in very creative ways. I mentioned Danelle and Ashley in those two first areas. Laura McDonald leads our marketing and Skyhawk Club areas. Trudy Henderson leads our sports information and our ESPN Plus, which has been a great thing for us. The money that we got from the OVC from ESPN Plus has been fantastic, and having our games on ESPN Plus. Bart Ballou is still in charge of our sport performance and training areas. And then up top, the assistant AD for development. Laura Suter filled that position for 4 or 5 years. She's moved over to the central office and taken on some other colleges and deferred gifts and planned gifts. And just today we announced the hiring of Julius McNair for that role. Julius was a former football player for us and had gone on to coach football at here and then other places. And he's going to come back and lead our fundraising aspects for athletics, because we're really gearing up for a facility campaign that I feel like is much needed, and adding on to some of our facilities and cleaning those up. My last area, real briefly, is budget. And this is just a snapshot. This is not our full budget. Be happy to send that to you. Probably only Art would love the numbers, and dive into them. But this is a snapshot of some of the main things that we do in athletics. As you can see, this is last year's too. And going into this year, I'll talk a little bit about that. But last year, direct institutional support, about 4.6 million of that is grant and aid. So the scholarships that we give our 400 some plus athletes, not everybody's on scholarship, but that's the money we give in grant and aid of that direct institutional support. The rest of that goes to whether it be salaries or operating budgets, and then we supplement everything with the other revenues, as you can see, with concessions and tickets. Student fees, I'll point that out. That's another big proponent of our revenues. Obviously, the student fees for athletics only comes off of FTEs, so we don't get student fees for everybody enrolled at UT Martin, like dual credit and other things. We get them for FTE, full-time enrollment students. So that's that piece of our budget. And then guarantee games. And the only reason we did not meet that guarantee budgeted amount was because baseball and softball did not get a chance last spring to play their guarantee games. Expenses, very similar. And athletic aid, as you can see, and of course that fluctuates. You may have more in-state kids than out-of-state kids one year, and then it flips. It just kind of depends and kind of fluctuates from year to year. And then as you can go through there, our expenses. I will point out, for a Division I school, our debt service is very, very low. The only debt that we're paying on is baseball and softball building over there, with their locker room and offices, and I think some lighting. Everything else, as far as the new press box and everything, is paid. So our debt is very low, and very proud of that. And going into this year, basically we're at zero. And we've lost guarantee games in football, which is about $875,000 worth. We've lost some basketball guarantee games with the movement from the NCAA of moving the games later, or start date later. So we're going to work hard. Now, I will say the savings come from this first 6 months of the fiscal year. Recruiting is a dead period, so our coaches are not out spending money, or we're not having official visits, which costs our recruiting budgets and our teams is a lot of money, bringing kids in or going to see kids. Our expenses with travel, since the seasons are cut, there's not as many road games. If you ask me, will you think you'll have a balanced budget by next June 30th? It's going to be hard to say with some of the losses we've had. If the NCAA cuts us, which they did last year, $700,000 at the end of last year was cut from our budget by the NCAA distribution. It's going to be difficult, but we're going to try to do our best not to exceed what we bring in. But there will be some challenges. There is no doubt. But we've had some challenges the last 6 months, and we're going to persevere. With that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Are there any questions from any of the advisory board members?
I have a question for the students, particularly like football, that are not going to be able to play this season. Do they get an extra year of eligibility?
Yes. The NCAA has put a blanket waiver in effect for anybody to have an extra year. So, for instance, I'll go back to the spring, just go in chronological, where our baseball, softball, we were able to have those seniors back that did not complete that season, and we were still able to keep it within their grant and aid budgets. Okay, because that's going to be the biggest thing. The NCAA grants the waiver, but can we afford to have everybody back? Is kind of is where we sit. And in baseball with 5 guys, and softball with 2, and golf with 2, it was a little easier. With football, we had 14 guys that were scheduled to graduate in December, and that's where we become a little more difficult. If all 14 choose to come back and pay for them for spring, and then if they get to come back in the fall, because the spring season, if we play football in the spring, will not count as the season. So they would be able to even come back in the fall. Well, I think, kids, some of them are injured. They decided they're not probably going to come back. I think that's going to probably even out. What the sad part about all of this COVID for athletics is, it's going to really hurt high school seniors in this year and next year, because there's going to be less opportunities if you bring kids back that haven't used their eligibility. Then you don't need as many people, or you can't afford as many kids. So those seniors in high school and our junior college kids that are looking to transfer, that could probably be the worst part about this, because the less opportunities are going to be available, and that's probably going to be the side effect of this that hurts the most.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a comment just quickly. Just want to say what a great job Kurt has done. It was recently announced we've extended Kurt's contract out to 2025. I think when I look back over his 3 years of work, and we had seen not only the academic performance and improvements, but also his work with fundraising. And I'll tell you, just in a general note, when problems happen or when there's opportunities in athletics, Kurt's on it. And he's a fantastic leader. He is a great manager, and has just done brought a sense of spirit over in athletics. Now, our chairman knows that probably the reason Kurt does his job so well is because Emily Ann Sparks really does all the work over there. But in all seriousness, Kurt's created a great atmosphere. He's hired good coaches. He deals with discipline issues, and I'm really happy to have him at UT Martin, and we felt really blessed. And so we did announce several weeks ago that we would really hope to keep Kurt for a long, long time, and I'm glad he's here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Kurt, you noted that they have deferred the basketball season. Have they reduced the number of games?
They have reduced the number of games by 4. And that's not a lot. It's really the games that we lost from November 10th to November 25th. Then there's a minimum number that is lowered as well. I serve on the National Women's Basketball Committee, so I will be selecting the tournament bracket here in March, hopefully. And that's a big discussion, because some teams, if you notice the Pac-12 and Upper Northeast, they say they're not going to start basketball till January, which limits games. They may not play. The minimum number is 13 games to keep your sports sponsorship. It's going to be very difficult for our committee if you've got a Pac-12 team play 16 games, and you've got a mid-major like UT Martin that goes 24-3 and plays all their games. It's going to be a very trying year for the seeding of brackets. But I can tell you this: NCAA is going to have a basketball tournament of some sort, because after last year when we didn't get to have basketball, wrestling, baseball, and softball, NCAA's biggest revenue sources are the ticket sales from those 5 sports, especially men's basketball. So we're going to have a basketball tournament. I don't know if it'll be a reduced field or reduced regions, but there will be a basketball tournament of some sort unless it gets really bad.
How have your contributions been? Have they continued on, or are you seeing any slowdown with that?
Yeah, I've been really pleased. I mean, Charlie Deal sent out I think, month to month or year to year dates, and we're ahead of last year. I don't know how. It's because of good people saying that they're going to support us no matter what. We really haven't sent out our Skyhawk Club stuff because we were waiting on schedules. Now that we're getting closer to schedules, we will be getting that out here really soon because of basketball and then obviously football next fall. I think, I give credit to our coaches last year. When we thought we were going to be about a $1.2 million deficit last year because of the NCAA distribution canceling, some of our revenue, not having rodeo, some of our revenues getting cut, we really worked hard in the Captain's Challenge and raised over $300,000 there as an athletic department and cut our expenses and whittled that down to a more manageable number last year. This year, we're going to have to do the same. We know we will. I mean, right now, I feel like we're $1 million short because of guarantee game losses. So we're going to have to do our jobs, and I think there's ways we can save money. I mean, if we do play football, it looks like we only have 3 travel games, and they're all day games. We don't have to spend the night, so that's going to save us. But it's going to be really tight, and we'll have to do the same way we did last year and be creative with how we raise money.
Okay. Maybe you can save money on Emily Ann's salary because I think she was over measuring her new office here on the 3rd floor of the administration.
Well, her office is right next to mine, and it's bigger than mine.
Well, she's looking at keys, but
Yeah.
that's okay.
She wants mine.
It's available for 14 days. She can go over there and squat at it right now.
All right. Are there any other questions for Kurt or Keith as they relate to athletics? Hearing none, then we'll go to Mark McLeod, who is the new Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, and he has a plan also.
I'd like to say good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board, Dr. Carver, for the opportunity. If Lindy could pull my slides on up, we're going to talk about our 90-day plan. Today I celebrate a month and a half in this role, so we're relatively new, but we do have a pretty aggressive plan for moving forward. Next slide, please. In this particular role, we have some high priority actions. We recently had a public adoption of the Skyhawk Creed signing day. The Skyhawk Creed is a way of life for our students that was built on the 3 principles of respect, responsibility, and right choices. And so as voluntary members of this community, they're the guidelines that we should live by, respecting people and their property, being responsible for our actions, and also making the right choices in terms of academic integrity, but also denouncing racism, hatred, and bigotry. We're working to market that. Several of the merchandise at our university, whether it's T-shirts or other things, have the creed listed, syllabus for faculty, so students can understand the expectation, and us as a university community as well too. We recently hosted the Beyond Colorblind Tour. Never before in recent history have we been dealing with a global pandemic and a national racial epidemic at the same time. And we had an opportunity for over 100 students and faculty and staff to have a conversation around race and to talk about the things that we need to do moving forward as well. I've also been meeting with our Human Resources Director, Michael Washington, and Joe Henderson, Director of Diversity and Equity, to look at our training needs, whether it's bias training, whether it's multicultural training across campus, and developing a schedule. Also with our inclusion committee, we're working on our diversity plan for the university, and that's going to include recruitment of diverse faculty and staff and students, and retention, policies, training, having access for all students, and looking at the affordability of access, looking at our attrition rates, and also holding ourselves accountable. And then also the creation of an inclusive excellence committee that is going to be comprised of university officials and students, and also external people to the universities, just to keep us accountable and make sure that we're moving in the right direction. And as far as my introduction to the campus, I've been in the process of writing my diversity manifesto so people can understand the true role. Sometimes my role is that of activist, sometimes it's an advocate, and sometimes it's an ambassador to make sure that people know my role not as the face of diversity and inclusion, but just a facilitator of that. I've been able to speak at our public forums and continue to connect via Zoom for the most part with the community so we can identify the views and the attitudes and experiences and shadow culture. You know, there's I have to be the voice of the voiceless. You know, several people have come up and shared their experiences, and those are things that we need to be able to do in order to identify and make connections across the university campus, allies who are going to be about change and moving our university forward. Also, being transparent to the media, making sure they know what's going on, make sure students know what's going on in terms of our diversity and our strategies and things too. And one important way to do that, we're developing a website for diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging, because diversity is just a small, well, it's a big piece, but of course, inclusion. You know, it's one thing to have diverse people and diverse ideas and thoughts, but to be inclusive of those, and then also providing some equity and creating a space where all belong at the university. Listening tours. I started a listening tour about a week or so ago, and I began with Dr. Renee LaFleur and our Center for Women and Gender Equality. And this list is not an exclusive list, but just some of the stops along the way. And we're going to get the listen to the needs from the academic departments, the vice chancellors, the chancellor, diverse student organizations, our student leadership, our athletic director, of course, campus safety, faculty senate, and our partners internally and externally to the institution, of course, institutional research, looking at our number and our data. One important stop is the admin to admin, just being able to allow the admins to tell their story because they know a lot of that historical data behind those departments. And of course, enrollment services, because it impacts our bottom line. And from this, what we do is we create a campus scorecard. You know, this is what I see. I'll be able to report back. This is what I hear you say you want as far as the people that I speak with. And this is what we really need to get it done to really learn the culture of the campus, and then to be able to change the culture in a more positive direction. Trauma is very significant. Being able to assess that, you know, the hurts and pains from the past, the times where we have not always made the right decision, but we need to own it so that we can move forward and move the campus in a positive direction. Now, establishing alliances, you know, we're looking for small wins. One of the big ones that I've looked at is just communication. A lot of times people really don't know the great things that we're doing. I think the website is going to actually help with that. And of course, that's a quick fix, just getting information out, using our website, using media, social media to get that out. There are a couple of campus groups, Black faculty and staff have been looking at creating an association that will build a community for a large pocket of our minority faculty and staff. And also, we're looking at identifying an organization for our international faculty and staff. And after talking to Dr. LaFleur, we're looking at our women faculty and staff and perhaps creating an association so that there are opportunities so we can do some targeted training to help with the advancement of careers and so that a lot of voices can be heard. So we're setting goals. You know, our first year goal, you know, 3-year goals, 5 years, and then really surrounding items to take care of those things. We're going to SMART goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. And then we have to have people that can help us to achieve those goals. And partnerships is going to be the key. Again, I have been identifying people that want to do diversity work around the campus. So we're building a team, we're pooling resources and developing a plan so that we can partner so that we can have some success in what we're doing. So after these listening tours, after these goals, you know, we're creating matrix. You know, the old university statistician at my previous jobs, I always said that people sometimes lie, but the numbers don't. So we have to look at our numbers. We have to look at our statistics. We have to make adjustments and follow our CAS standards so that we not only create the matrix in a system that is good, but it needs to be a system that meets national standards, not only with our sister institutions but across the board. And I feel like we can be a leader when it comes to diversity and inclusion in higher education. And of course, SACS accreditation is something that we need to be prepared for. My philosophy: if we stay ready, we don't have to get ready. So if we build it the right way, have a sense of accountability along the way, that we're in perfect position when the time comes time for our accreditation. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I've kind of discussed, where we are. Again, very new department, and we're working on a lot of different things now. But are there any questions about what we're doing and what we plan to do?
Mark, what size is your staff?
What size is the staff?
Yes, what
Now, you're looking at him, but we're making plans to get some admin support as well. And I will say this, in talking with Dr. Carver, our goal is to grow a department, and I'm a department of one right now, but I do believe that when we do it right, we'll develop. We're assessing all of our needs, and even now, just developing a team organically from what we have, and I do believe very soon that we'll be adding to our team. But currently, I'm that guy.
Yeah, Monique, no, go ahead, Julia, please.
Dr. McLeod, I know you've only been there a month and a half, but
Yes, ma'am.
what are you finding is the biggest challenge? Are you all, is Martin, are the numbers of students, minority students or minority staff or attitude on campus, what is it that you feel right now is your biggest challenge?
Well, our biggest challenge now, we have to do a better job of communicating with each other and working together. There are a lot of, there sometimes are resources in place that can kind of help with situations. And of course, they're great needs, but we need to get together to discuss them and to be on the same page and move forward. Sometimes there are frustrations. As many know, we had things in the media that were not positive at all. But we do have some plans in place, and we're doing a better job of communicating what we have in place, how we're moving in what direction. And so having those open discussions, I think Beyond Colorblind Tour is really great in terms of just allowing students and faculty and staff to begin to talk, but then to begin to plan. And I think working with the Multicultural Center, we're making some additional plans. And of course, the advisory committee that we have in place right now are working on the diversity plan. So as soon as we get that site up, I think that will begin to let people know what we're doing. And we need everyone. This diversity work is not going to be for just a few people. It has to be ingrained in our institution, and everyone has to see it as important. And so I guess getting that message out so that everyone knows, I might be an athletic director, but diversity is important to me in it impacts the entire university in every aspect of that. So we're going to get our message out, or, I might be an instructor, but I'm teaching students from a very diverse background. So, and maybe the curriculum has to begin to adjust to, the learners, just like we were dealing with a learner who had an impairment of some type of like visual impairment. We're sure we would have corrective lenses, but we deal with people who come from different backgrounds, and we have to kind of make adjustments for that. So I would say that's the biggest challenge.
Keith, I think you had a question.
I was just going to say, Mark, Dr. McLeod has hit the ground running. He had been here for 3 years working as director of our Career Planning and Development Center. And so Mark knows industry, he knows private business. He's worked with students to help them secure internships, help them get into graduate schools. But he's also a graduate of UT Martin. So he knows so many people out there. And already it's interesting. We hired Dr. McLeod in this position, and mainly he's here for our students. He's here for our faculty and staff, working with the community. But having someone with Dr. McLeod's contacts and skills, we've also already started talking about some fundraising initiatives just based on the people that Dr. McLeod knows. And he's been just a joy to work with. He's really smart. He's the smartest Ole Miss graduate I've ever met, and so he's changing my mind about Ole Miss. But in all seriousness, he graduated with his PhD at Ole Miss. But he's hit the ground running, and he's just been a joy to work with, and our students love him. And that means so much to me, is to see him interacting with our students and our alumni, and we're real excited. And Moniece, it's brand new. This is new ground for us. Mark's hiring, and so now building out around him. But I think we've got just such a great centerpiece to start this conversation, start this office with Dr. McLeod. So we're glad he's here.
Dr. McLeod, where are your offices or office?
Okay, right now I'm in the University Center in 210 inside the Office of Career Planning and Development. I also have a space in the admin building as well too that we're going to kind of fix up. So I have an opportunity to be over there as well and during this interim period of time.
You're accessible to the students. That's what's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He is. He also just got married, and Dr. McLeod really outkicked his coverage there.
I did, I must admit.
He's not the only one. He's not the only one that can say that. Okay.
But he is doing a great job. One of the things that's coming up, just so you know, Mr. Chairman, is within about 18 months, one of the next renovations on our campus is actually going to be the administration building. And so we're in the process of reconfiguring who's going where. We've got some folks that are going to be moving over to Clement. We're within a year of it being completely redone. And so we're doing some shifting around. And so one of the long terms is we're going to have more space over in administration. So as we grow some departments, we'll have some space for them. So it'll be great. But Emily Ann, we'll get her stuff fitted for my office, and she can take right over.
Yeah, she was covering and telling me how she was going to move people around. I can't even say that with a straight face.
That's right.
Any other questions for Dr. McLeod? And happy to have you on, Mark.
Thank you,
Mark?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Hal, it's been really refreshing to receive the pass-through information about admissions and some of the other things going on, and I want to thank whoever, I suppose that's Keith's responsibility, and thank him for that. But as Mark's taking on this big job, I, as a board member, advisory board member, would love to have some of that pass-through information about how that's going. I think it's critical, and I think it's what we need to know when asked, and present the same message to to our local public that we're receiving internally.
That's a great point, Hal. And I'm sure that Dr. McLeod will be able to work with the Chancellor and Edie and get that information to us.
Definitely.
Any other questions? Okay, the next item on the agenda is setting the future dates for the regular board meetings. I think we all received a listing. The next meeting would be January 22nd, and then May 21st, September 17th, all of 2021, and then January 21st, May 20th, and September 23rd of 2022. Does anyone know of any conflicts or problems that we might have? And hopefully we'll be able to actually sit down together and not have to do all this Zoom. Maybe Keith will be out of quarantine by 2022. Okay. Do I hear a motion to set these as future dates, realizing that they could very well have to change? But do I hear a motion that we accept these?
Art, Hal here.
Yes,
I
sir.
move.
Hal Bynum
Monique
moves.
seconds.
Okay. Monique second. We'll again have to have a roll call vote on this. Edie?
Okay, Ashley Bynum, I'm sorry, Ashley Bynum, we've talked about her. Katie Ashley, Hal Bynum,
Aye.
Moniece Hagler,
Aye.
Emma Hilliard,
Aye.
Philip Smart,
Aye.
Art Sparks,
Aye.
and Julia Wells.
Aye.
We have approval.
Okay. We'll go to the comments by the chancellor, and hopefully he will cover some of the enrollment data that we have been getting, that Hal referred to, and maybe how the overall university is doing. I will tell you this, Keith, that John Stevens and I at lunch had a real good conversation about the state budget and what they planned on doing, and I think he anticipates us getting back to the maintenance projects and catching up on those and some of the construction projects. I was very pleased to hear him say that.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. It's I come to you right now really encouraged. I mean, we're in the middle of a tough time. We're in the middle of COVID. We're in the middle of trying to communicate and reach our students during a time of great unrest in society, and we can't get together. We can't get folks together. But I'm really encouraged about what we're trying to do at the university. And let me just say, I really appreciate, Johnny, your willingness to come on the board. We're so excited about you being a part of this. What you all don't realize is by asking Mr. Woolfolk to come on to the board, he has a spy walking around campus in the form of a grandson. So I've got to really be careful about what his grandson sees on campus. But we're so excited to have you on here. I also want to thank. I'm going to talk a little bit about enrollment, and I want to point out to Emma Hilliard, the biggest thing that we were concerned about this year was, would students want to go to college in the middle of a pandemic in primarily an online format? And, there are less students going to college across the country right now. If you had asked me back in April or May what our numbers would have looked like for full-time, I was afraid that we would be anywhere from 250 to 500 students down, just based on some national trends I was getting. But our folks jumped in there, got really busy, kept in touch with students, and we're down, but we're down slightly. We're only down 38 students from this time last year, and so for us, that's a huge win. We made a huge difference, and by the way, you all, I will send out, Edie, if you'll remind me, I just got the THEC report, which shows fall enrollment for all Tennessee publics. So I'll get that out to you next week on Monday. I'll send that to you. You'll see colleges are up and down all across the state. The leaders this year in enrollment was University of Memphis, Knoxville, and MTSU. They had huge rises in their graduate enrollment, and that put them up a couple of percentage points. But for us, Austin P, Tennessee Tech, the regionals, we were really worried. ETSU, how things would look. So we feel really good. Our state funding comes off of the backs of how many full-time students we have. And for us to get over 1,000 freshmen enrolled this fall, which is what we needed, and only be down 38 full-time students, that's the good news. And so I spoke about Emma earlier. I really appreciate, Emma, you and your students coming back, because I know the spring was hard. This fall, we're about 50% completely online. We've got a good portion that are hybrid, which means some in class and some online, and then we've got a few classes that are face-to-face. It's really hard. Our faculty are teaching basically 2 classes. They're having to prepare sort of an online class, but they're also having to teach in person as well, and it's really hard on them. And I know it's really hard on our students too. And so we're grateful for the work of our faculty, like Dr. Smart, and that our students, like Emma, have come back. Campus is different right now. While we are again 50% online, we've still got 1,600 students, over 1,600 students living on campus. So that's only down about 7% over last year, which is really good. We need those spaces, that 7%, because as all universities are doing, or universities like us that are opening, we needed some isolation space. And so far, I mean, knock on wood here, our COVID numbers are trending okay. We can handle what we've got today. Right now, we've got 32 active student cases. We've got 2 active employee cases, and we have 4 students that are currently living on campus in an isolation room. And someone said, Chancellor, what's the tipping point that we would need to go back and go completely online? Well, that sort of changes day to day, but the big thing is our ability to take care of students on campus. And with only 4 students in isolation, we're able to take care of them and continue on and keep our library open, keep our cafeteria open, keep some of our rec facilities open, and that sort of thing. Now, I'll tell you, if you all get test positive with COVID, Moniz and Memphis, you just come on down to Martin, because our isolation rooms are pretty good. They've all got big screen televisions. You get 3 meals and snacks delivered to you daily, plus any assignments that need to be brought to your room. That happens. And so I'm thinking that's pretty good. So, but we are really trying to take care of our students. And again, students, so far, our students who are in isolation have not been really that sick. Most of our students are reporting fever, loss of taste and smell, and really that's about it. So we're able to take care of those folks on campus. Daily, you guys can go to our website, utm.edu, and you can do that any day. And at the top banner, we tell you all of our COVID statistics, and we update those daily. There's a link that you click on right there, and you can go and see all our COVID information. There's a dashboard, not only talking about our COVID information, but how's Chattanooga doing? How's Knoxville doing? How's the Health Science Center doing? And so some comparative things. But we're monitoring these things. We're working. Well, there they are. I mean, I just speak and it shows up. That's crazy. But you can see how on there. And Edie, would you show them the dashboard, or whoever's got this, show them the dashboard? This is nice because it not only shows you how we're doing that day, but how the trend has gone over time. And so you can see, are we up? Are we down? And that's really important for us. So I will say the biggest thing as we went into the semester, and I'll wrap up quickly, I was really worried about the physical health of our students, and still am really concerned about that. What I'll tell you I've learned is I think the biggest learning experience for me has been the mental and emotional health and well-being of our students. And the number of students who have come in and requested counseling this August over last August is doubled. The number of students who called in and wanted some sort of telecounseling online, that's doubled. And so making sure we're able to get out and reach and touch those students, and our faculty like Dr. Smart, our administrative care team, and you all had a presentation about that a few months ago, are working overtime to make sure that we're emotionally able to take care of the students, because there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of uncertainty, and times are just hard. And so we went in looking at physical health, but midway through, we're really focusing on their emotional. But we're going to finish up the semester at Thanksgiving. We're going to come back around Martin Luther King Jr. Day, probably that Tuesday after. Looking at the spring, we're planning for it to be sort of like right now, but we hope it's better. We hope that we're able to open up a little more, have larger groups on campus, things of that nature. In closing, I just want to say that it's still a college campus, and Emma will tell you she doesn't see as many of her friends walking around campus as she did the year before. However, I think our student life staff is doing a great job of keeping students engaged. We had an R&B concert the other night. We had a performer named K Camp who went in his studio and he did a live stream concert just for our students. No one else could log in. Students were able to interact with him through chat rooms virtually. It was highly successful. Mark talked about the diversity speaker we had this week, highly successful. We're doing other things. We did an online scavenger hunt 2 weeks ago. We're getting ready now that it's getting colder. We're going to have some inflatable movie screens, and we're going to do movies on the quad, and so we can spread students out, and we'll watch some college football out there and watch movies. So we're trying to do all we can to get students out and keep them safe, but yet make sure they're getting exactly what they need to excel academically. Things are looking great from a budget standpoint for this year. Things are really looking good with capital projects. The Latimer building is going to be finished on time, and we're really excited about that. And we think we'll have the number two. Well, we know we'll have the number two building priority in this year's capital budget from UT, and that's our product realization innovation space. That's the parallel companion building to engineering. And we know we've got the second priority in the UT system on that. So I really look for good things to come. It's been a crazy year, but man, I am really encouraged, and I just cannot thank you all enough for your engagement and how you support both the university, but also me, and I'm grateful.
Keith, one question about capital improvements. Where are we on Skyhawk on the football field?
Football field was delayed massively with COVID production. Right. Just everybody's behind. Edie, was the date on that? I'm asking Edie, was that October 1st that we were told that the materials arrive?
I believe it was October the 15th.
October the 15th. We should have all the materials here, and that's been the problem. It's been the materials. After the materials are here, the contractors told us they'd have it done in 2 weeks. Okay. So, which is really exciting. But with us playing football in the spring, we'll have our visitor stands up for our games in February, which will be great. I kid our students all the time, though. I think we could make some money, Art. If you go look at the visitor stands now, it looks like at the old carnivals, they have the burlap bags, the sack races, you go down the slides. You could do that over there. Maybe we could raise a little money for it. Now, there might be some liability concerns there with the concrete partition at the bottom. But anyway, Emma, I'll race you down. We'll go get some burlap stacks and do that.
Senator Stevens and I talked about that. He said when he was at Martin, he probably would have done that. But he says he thinks it's a great idea and he'll follow you down.
I appreciate the senator.
I don't think we can understate the importance of what Dr. Carver, Dr. McLeod, Dr. Smart, Kurt, what every one of the staff and administration at UT Martin has done to get through this. Honestly, 6 months ago, not 6 months ago, probably 4 months ago, I never would have thought that we would have been having this conversation based upon the way things were happening there. And my hat's off to all of you guys that are on the staff, administration, professors, and everything else. And I hate to give you a compliment, Keith, but it is what it is.
All right, I do want to point out that Dr. Smart actually chaired our COVID-19 reentry task force, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. So he's a pretty humble guy, but they did a great job with it.
I would agree. As far as closing remarks go from me, or does anybody have any questions of Keith that they would like to ask?
Except Emma.
Hearing none, John, we certainly welcome you to this committee. We look forward to working with you over the next several years. Hate to see Katie go, but that's the way it is. But again, John, you feel free to give any of us a call if you have any questions. If you have any problems out of Keith, give me a call and I'll see what I could do as far as that. Hearing nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Julia Wells,
Second.
Monique, second. Do we have to have a roll call vote? We don't. Everybody say aye and let's go home.
Aye.
God bless you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Guys.
All right.
Thanks.